It's like a web there is no escape from. It's got you trapped and you long for freedom. Every wish, every dream was granted, never knowing what they demanded. You see the wall, how it's getting higher. You want to fight, but you're all divided. It's not a world anyone can thrive in. Is this the world we were meant to grow in? Somebody tell me, where are we going? Brave new worlds will rise if we do not act upon its lies.
Killer Main and Survivor Main are labels created by the Dead by Daylight community in order to establish what side of the game they prefer. This label isn't just a way to provide information, it can be incorporated into people's identities. It can color how you feel about a person. So I gathered as many people as I could, and I asked them intentionally biased questions in order to get to the bottom of how much it matters for someone to main Killer or Survivor.
I'm pretty equal, but I'd have to say Killer.
I main Killer.
Play mostly Killer.
I main Killer. I like to imagine I'm 50-50.
I'm sorry, you have to answer one for the questions.
Killer.
Absolutely main Survivor.
Why did you choose a killer to represent you rather than a survivor?
Because the Nodders are just a lot more funny on Singularity.
I play both sides, but primarily Killer.
Definitely Killer.
I main Killer.
I main Survivor, mostly.
I main Survivor.
Honestly, I don't really main either, but if you were to hold a gun to my head and ask, then I would have to say I play Killer more, so you could say I'm a Killer main.
I main Killer.
I'm a Killer main.
Killer.
Killer.
Probably Survivor.
I main Killer.
Killer.
Pretty much only Survivor.
Killer.
Killer. Mostly Killer.
I have to say one or the other,
Yes, I have questions for Survivor Mains, questions for Killer Mains.
but I truly do play both.
I know, and everyone plays both.
Okay, I guess I consider myself a little more of a killer main.
I consider myself a killer main.
2000.
Around 800.
I have 600 hours and 30 hours.
48 hours. Just reached 1,000 hours.
10,620 hours.
My god, that is the highest hour count we have in this interview. Holy shit.
1.5k hours in the game.
330.
2,100.
So I'm at 2,200 hours now.
About 900 hours now.
Probably a bit over 1,000 hours.
I have been playing since 2018. I have no way to track my hours thanks to console.
Almost 2,000.
670 hours.
2,800 roughly.
1,340 hours.
A little over 1,000 hours.
850 hours.
3,000 spread between console and PC.
1,400 in the game, approaching about that much.
1,865 hours.
I have over 1.5k hours in the game.
60% Killer, 40% Survivor.
80 to 20 between Killer and Survivor.
60 to 40%, I guess.
Killer, it will be 95%, and Survivor around 5. 50-50.
Survivor 80%, 20% Killer.
Definitely 60-40.
90% to 10%.
80% Killer, 20% Survivor.
85-15.
80% Survivor, 20% Killer.
Killer 60% of the time, and Survivor 40%.
Killer roughly about 80%, I'm gonna say, and Survivor probably around about 20.
90% Killer, 10% Survivor.
80% Killer, 20% Survivor.
I'd guess 60-40.
95% of my time is spent playing Killer, and the remaining 5% is playing me playing Survivor.
Play about 30% Survivor and about 70% Killer.
I would say 90% Killer, 10% Survivor.
99% of my hours are Survivor, and 1% is to Killer, mostly custom games.
That would be a 60% Killer, 50% Survivor.
Wherever the incentive takes me.
80-20 Killer to Survivor.
I'd say it's probably actually 60% Survivor to 40% Killer. I do play Survivor a little more.
It's probably 60-70 killer, probably 40-30 survivor.
Nope.
I want to say no, but I've had so many experiences with like toxic and salty survivors that, to be honest, the term survivor main does kind of impact my view of them.
Well, yeah, fuck them.
Why?
Well, because
Because I'm a killer main, I don't really like playing against survivors.
It would depend on how they play.
A little bit. I don't dislike survivor mains, but for some reason, like no hate, I just feel like they're a bit more tryhardy than most killer mains.
I assume that they're partially biased towards their role, but I don't assume any less of them as like a player, nor does it impact my view on their opinions about the game unless it's like a very blatant bias.
A little bit, not like fully, but like it gives me like a bit of a warning sign.
No, not always.
Why not? And what do you mean by not always?
If somebody is ever really like only plays Survivor, I will see them as they don't really know the other side. So like that, it will change my impression of them. Not for the worse.
Okay, well, there's two different kinds. There's normal survivors, they're fine. Maybe there's a few toxic people in there, doesn't matter. But then there's the Sable mains. And listen, I don't hate you playing Sable, but can you play someone else? Just a small break, please. I only see Sable nowadays. I want at least like 2 games in a row where I don't see a Sable.
If somebody tells me they're a survivor main, I mostly just get confused because I just think that there's a lot more to think about and a lot more like different play styles with killer. And so I just mostly feel confused why they would want to miss out on that.
It does a little bit. It tells me that they're more of like a people person, I suppose. They like to play with others. They maybe are playing for fun.
Usually, if they're a survivor main, I tend to be a bit biased because a lot of the bad behavior I've been seeing have been from survivor players.
Not at all.
Why not?
It's just how you want to play the game. There's no problem with how you want to play the game unless you're making people miserable by doing what you want to do. Then try doing something else.
No. To be entirely honest, no. I don't see any reason why would it. And to be fair, I would actually appreciate it even more. Because I mean, it's one thing to meet another person who enjoys the same part of the game as you, but if you meet another person who enjoys the opposite side, well, you can amplify your horizons, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I would appreciate it more.
Not really. I mean, it doesn't really matter who someone plays. Like, if someone prefers killer or someone prefers survivor, it's just who they play in a game. It's like, if someone wants to play in a specific way, they can play that specific way. Like, I don't really care. It doesn't really change my perspective on who they are as a person.
I think context is important for that situation, because if it's like I'm a survivor main and the only thing I play is survivor, I think my opinion is definitely different.
Absolutely not, because I see no reason to judge people for that.
Yes.
Why?
850 hours has taught me that the hierarchy and, good lord, elitism that is in this game. Everyone hates everyone, and nothing's going to change.
That's a real bummer.
Not in any, like, negative way, just the fact that, you know, whatever they have to say about the game is going to come from a certain perspective, and that most people have, you know, kind of an inherent bias to their own fun.
I'm not gonna be mean here, but this might be hard to hear, but yes, it does. I don't hate survivor mains, and this is gonna be, again, hard to hear, but I just don't have a high opinion of people who say they're survivor mains. Only because in my experience as both killer and survivor, they come off as, unfortunately, kind of conceited with a big ego, sometimes a toxic streak.
I don't think I've ever encountered anyone who says that they're a survivor main, but if I did, I'd try not to let it change my perception, because that's not very fair on them.
What do you mean try?
I don't want to assume anything.
Are there assumptions that come to mind when someone says that they're a survivor main?
It does come to the mind. It's one of those things I don't want to assume that they'd be like super against killers or not understand killer struggles, but it does come to mind because there are some things that are more easily understood only by people who play killer or people who actually invest time into killer.
No, not at all.
Why not?
Because everyone here is just here to play the game. They're not here like it's some politics. Like, if you play killer, you think everything should be buffed on your side. If you're main survivor, everything you think should be buffed on your side. That's not how this works. You're just here to play the game, to have fun. That doesn't change my view on you.
No, not really. I just feel like everyone just has their own opinion on the game, you know?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I think it
I think that's like rife for conversation because a lot of the people that I've met on stream are usually killer mains, right? So a lot of the people that have joined my stream or have started following me, the majority of them are killer mains, right? So people such as yourself and others, they're usually killer mains. So yeah, so when they say that they're a killer main, I'm just like, okay, that's cool, that's awesome, and they seem pretty okay about it. I guess it just depends how the match goes, I suppose.
Not particularly.
Why not?
Because I feel as if they're just enjoying the game in their own way.
Not too much. I think it's stupid to let someone, who says, I'm a killer main or survivor main, change my impression of them. It just means they enjoy that style of game.
DVD is a good game. You need to subscribe to Sage the YouTuber.
I think most people put too much importance on mains and really who you play. Because forcing yourself to play as a specific category or character limits a lot of creativity. And I find myself being a lot more frustrated and angry when I limit myself to playing only like one killer or only playing survivor for an extended period of time.
For the killers out there, appreciate your patience, giving a lot of survivors their games, and they should learn to be more appreciative of you. Stop bringing those stupid map offerings, especially.
Don't forget that it's just a video game. If you're not enjoying it, don't force yourself to play it. Play for the love of the game, not because it's what you always do or you have to grind an event or whatever. Just play it because it makes you happy, otherwise there's no point in playing.
Some people judge a lot of people for who they play, and while we shouldn't judge someone for who they play, we should take into accountability that they don't have credibility on the entire game, and while their opinions are valid, they're always not educated enough.
Subscribe to Twin Main Sage.
Being a killer main or a survivor main, I think, does three really good things. I think it gives you a sense of identity, I think it gives you a sense of escapism, and I think it gives you a sense of purpose.
So the whole idea of being a killer main or survivor main and wearing that as a badge of honor or to try to use that as a reason to end an argument is honestly really silly. You're talking about a game, first of all, a game that has two vastly different game modes with majorly different experiences. So while everyone is allowed to pick and choose what parts of the game you want to play, you're admitting that you have only ever played half of what Dead by Daylight has to offer.
I wish there was less toxicity between the two sides. I think that the community is way too quick to call certain things that they just don't like toxic. So I just wish there was less of that.
The elitism in the game needs to die. We need to make it a bit more new player friendly without killing the mechanics.
Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that yeah, sure, we are enjoying completely different sides of the game if you, the one who's listening, is a survivor main. But at the end of the day, without each other, we wouldn't be able to play the game at all. So keep that in mind, okay? Let's appreciate each other. Because, yeah, okay, we're part of two different groups, but we are part of the same game. So
Dead by Daylight being an asymmetric game makes it a lot harder to sort of connect the two different sides compared to, say, someone like a game like Overwatch who the two different sides go through the same thing. But realistically, it's just two different people wanting to play a different game, because it's like you playing Survivor is a lot different to playing Killer, so it's someone trying to play a different game completely. So that's how a lot of people find that the gap between Survivor and Killer is quite large, but it's not actually that large.
I think my final thoughts are to not let someone's preferred gameplay make you think differently of them. Some people just want to play alone and they want to play, serial killer simulator. Other people like me, they just want to play with others and feel like they accomplished a goal together.
When you ask me, do you get an impression of people when they say they're a survivor main? That honestly made me think, like, some people, they just kind of take this game too seriously on where they go, oh, this person main survivor, I immediately don't like them, or vice versa with killer and survivor. I feel like people gotta drop that more, because the moment that's dropped from the community, I guarantee, like, snap, it would get 1,000 times better.
I really like the general question. I think it's important to think about that it's all a matter of perspective, and like where on the spectrum of skill and experience that you sit is going to really like color your opinion on, whether or not it matters what side you play or how like highly your opinions on game balance should be held or whatever.
People need to stop pretending that certain strategies are for babies or unskilled, or some killers are too weak to be viable, or perks are trash. And I don't think anything in this game is trash except for toxicity. Anything can be viable in the right hands.
I hope I made sense. I'm not good at articulating my stuff.
You did great. You made so much sense. There's not exactly a short answer here. I both recognize the importance of finding labels that work for you, and that someone shouldn't be judged for how they enjoy a game. Recording these interviews made me realize that I have biases that have formed over my 5,000 hours of playing this game. I tend to brag that my Discord server, which you should join, primarily has killer mains, because in my head, killer main equals good, reasonable people, and survivor main equals bad, toxic people. And that is a problem. Even the tamest of opinions can show that you have assumptions about people before you even really get to know them. And the more both sides judge each other and dislike each other, the larger the rift between survivors and killers gets. You are statistically more likely to get a toxic survivor because of the sheer amount of survivors there are. But when some people run into a toxic survivor player, they focus more on the survivor adjective than the toxic adjective. There is nothing inherently good or bad about primarily playing killer or survivor. But this video and these interviews are meant to cause some self-reflection, because we all need each other for this game to exist. There are toxic and negative people in every community, and maybe Dead by Daylight is corrupted by that more than other games. And most of us play both sides, and we know that there are struggles and problems with killing and surviving. Shouldn't we at least try not to care whether someone mains killer or survivor? Shouldn't we judge someone based on their words and actions rather than who they play in a video game?